What if I told you that 7 plants you've probably never heard of, plants that governments and agricultural corporations would prefer you forget about, could feed your entire family on less land than a suburban garage occupies? Not in some distant future. Not with advanced technology or laboratory intervention. Right now. These aren't obscure botanical curiosities. They're nutritional powerhouses that have sustained entire civilizations for thousands of years. Yet today, they're restricted, vilified, or completely absent from supermarket shelves. Some are classified as invasive. Others exist in a legal gray area. A few are actively discouraged by institutions that benefit from your dependence on imported food and synthetic supplements. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why these 7 crops were hidden in plain sight, and how to grow them yourself. My name is your host. I run this channel to expose the plants that governments and corporations want you to overlook. The ones that actually make you independent from industrial food systems. If that mission resonates with you, subscribe. Not for metrics. For resilience. Let's begin. Start with Moringa. In West Africa, India, and Southeast Asia, this tree is called the miracle tree. In America, it's virtually unknown. And that's deliberate. 1 cup of Moringa leaves contains 2 grams of protein. That's 40% more protein per ounce than beef. Not comparable protein. Better protein. Moringa contains all 9 essential amino acids, the complete amino acid profile your body cannot produce on its own. But protein is just the beginning. That same single cup delivers 430% of your daily requirement for vitamin A, critical for immune function and vision. It contains 40% of your daily iron, 19% of your daily calcium. And Moringa leaves are bioavailable, meaning your body actually absorbs and uses these nutrients. They don't pass through you. Compare this to spinach, kale, or any leafy green you've been told is a superfood. Moringa outperforms all of them. Yet spinach dominates supermarket shelves. The answer is economic. Moringa grows in almost any climate. It requires minimal water. It tolerates poor soil. It produces year-round. A single mature tree feeds a family indefinitely. That makes it a threat to the agrochemical industry. When food companies profit from dependency, when they need you buying supplements, buying fortified grains, buying imported produce, a plant that makes you completely self-sufficient becomes a liability. Why it's suppressed? Moringa exists in a regulatory vacuum in the United States. It's not banned. It's simply not approved as a food ingredient by the FDA. This creates legal liability for commercial growers. You can buy Moringa powder online, but no mainstream seed catalog stocks Moringa seeds. No agricultural extension office teaches Moringa cultivation. The suppression isn't overt. It's systemic. In countries where Moringa is embraced, India, Senegal, Philippines, malnutrition rates have declined measurably. The UN has studied Moringa as a solution to food insecurity. Yet American agriculture policy remains silent. That silence is strategic. Growth and cultivation. Moringa grows in USDA zones 9 through 11. In colder climates, you cultivate it as an annual, harvesting aggressively before frost. In warm zones, it becomes a permanent fixture. The tree tolerates poor, sandy, or compacted soil. It requires minimal fertilizer. Water it during establishment, the first 3 months. After that, it survives on rainfall alone. Even in semi-arid regions, growth is explosive. Moringa reaches 10 feet in the first year. You harvest leaves continuously. Pinch the growing tips and the plant branches. Each branch produces more leaves. A single mature tree yields 500 pounds of fresh leaves annually. That's 250 pounds after drying, enough to supplement a family of 4 year-round. Propagation is simple. Moringa grows from seed or from cuttings. Seeds germinate in 10 to 14 days. Plant them directly into soil. No germination trays required. Food independence application. This is where Moringa becomes strategic for family resilience. 1. You reduce dependence on supplements. Moringa covers your amino acids, vitamins A and C, iron, calcium, and magnesium in a single plant. No synthetic multivitamins. No fortified breakfast cereals. 2. You reduce import dependency. Most American produce travels 1,500 miles from farm to table. Morina grows in your yard. Storage is simple. Dried morina powder stays viable for 2 years in cool, dark conditions. 3. In food disruption scenarios, supply chain collapse, economic uncertainty, climate instability, morina continues producing. Trees don't require annual replanting. They don't depend on imported fertilizer. They produce regardless of market conditions. This is why governments in food-insecure regions are planting morina aggressively. It's not sentiment. It's survival strategy. Most people have never heard of perennial buckwheat. The ones who have heard of it know the annual variety, a summer cover crop, planted and tilled under. Perennial buckwheat is different. It's suppressed. Deliberately. 1 pound of buckwheat seed produces approximately 4 to 5 pounds of groats, the edible kernel. That's a 4 to 1 to 5 to 1 return ratio. Compare that to wheat, which yields roughly 2:1. But buckwheat offers something wheat never will. Complete protein. All 9 essential amino acids. 12% protein by weight. That rivals chicken breast. Additionally, buckwheat contains rutin, a bioflavonoid that strengthens capillaries and reduces inflammation. It contains resistant starch, which feeds beneficial gut bacteria. And it contains 0 gluten. For the 3% of the population with celiac disease, and the estimated 30% with gluten sensitivity, buckwheat is liberation. Yet buckwheat has been systematically removed from American agriculture. Why it's suppressed? Wheat dominates American grain policy because it's subsidized. Since 1995, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has distributed approximately $38 billion in crop subsidies. Wheat receives the lion's share. Buckwheat receives virtually nothing. This creates market distortion. Wheat is artificially cheap. Buckwheat appears expensive by comparison, even though it requires fewer inputs to grow and produces more nutrition per calorie. Additionally, buckwheat doesn't fit the industrial agriculture model. Wheat grows on massive monoculture farms. It requires uniform, standardized inputs. Buckwheat is decentralized. A family can grow a year's supply in a quarter acre. That independence is dangerous to grain companies and seed corporations that profit from scale and dependency. Perennial buckwheat is even more threatening. The annual variety requires replanting each year. You buy seed every year. Perennial buckwheat produces for decades from a single establishment. One investment. Perpetual harvest. Growth and cultivation. Perennial buckwheat grows in zones 4 through 9. It tolerates poor soil better than almost any grain crop. It grows in clay, sand, compacted earth, even marginal land unsuitable for other crops. Establish it in spring from seed. Buckwheat germinates in 8 to 10 days. Within 60 days, you have your first harvest of immature seeds and leaves. Within 90 days, mature seed is ready. After the first year, the perennial variety requires minimal input. Cut it back in fall. It regrows from the root system in spring. Harvest 2 to 3 times per growing season. Soil requirements are minimal. Buckwheat doesn't deplete nitrogen the way wheat does. In fact, buckwheat improves soil. Its deep roots break compaction. Its rhizobia bacteria fix nitrogen, enriching earth for subsequent crops. Water needs are moderate. Buckwheat tolerates drought better than wheat or corn. In dry regions, it outperforms traditional grains consistently. Food independence application. Buckwheat addresses grain independence directly. A family of 4 requires approximately 400 pounds of grain annually for complete nutritional security. You can produce that on a quarter acre of perennial buckwheat. No machinery required. No industrial inputs. No annual seed purchases. Buckwheat stores indefinitely. Whole groats last 5 years in cool, dry conditions. In vacuum-sealed containers, they last 10 years or more. Your grain never spoils. Never requires rotation. Never depends on grocery store availability. Moreover, buckwheat cooks in 15 minutes. No soaking required. No special preparation. It's accessible to anyone. For preparedness-oriented families, this represents true food security. Not dependency on stored calories. Not reliance on emergency food rations. Real grain production under your control. Purslane is classified as a weed. Most gardeners destroy it on site. That's a catastrophic mistake. 1 cup of fresh purslane delivers 415 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids. That's comparable to a salmon fillet. Omega-3s reduce inflammation. They support brain function. They're essential fatty acids your body cannot produce independently. Additionally, purslane contains more vitamin A than carrots, more vitamin C than oranges, more calcium than kale, and it contains oxalates at levels lower than spinach, meaning your body absorbs the minerals more efficiently. The plant grows in almost every American garden. Most people spend money and effort eliminating it. Why it's suppressed? Purslane isn't legally restricted. It's culturally suppressed. The suppression began in the early 20th century when American agriculture shifted toward ornamental aesthetics. A perfect lawn became a status symbol. Anything that wasn't monoculture grass was classified as a weed. Purslane, being common and productive, was villainized as invasive and unwanted. Home and garden magazines reinforced the message. Schools taught children to eliminate it. But the cultural suppression served economic interests. Herbicide companies profit from the war on weeds. Supplement manufacturers benefit from nutritional deficiency. If purslane were recognized as a nutritional resource, the demand for supplemental omega-3 products would collapse. The suppression is cultural rather than legal. But it's equally effective. Growth and cultivation. Purslane requires virtually no cultivation. It grows in USDA zones 2 through 11. It thrives in poor soil, full sun, and minimal water. It actually prefers neglect. Seeds germinate in 7 to 10 days. You can also propagate from cuttings. Simply push a stem into soil and water. It roots within days. Harvest begins 6 to 8 weeks after germination. Pinch the top third of stems. The plant branches and produces more foliage. Continuous harvest extends the season from early summer through frost. Storage. Fresh purslane keeps refrigerated for 2 weeks. Dried purslane lasts indefinitely. Dehydrate at 95 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 days. Food independence application. Purslane addresses omega-3 security, a critical nutritional vulnerability for families reducing reliance on commercial supplements and fish. Plant purslane in a dedicated bed measuring 4 feet by 8 feet. One bed produces enough omega-3 content to meet an adult's daily requirement for 120 days. With succession planting, you achieve year-round coverage. Additionally, purslane is virtually costless. Seeds cost $3 per packet. One packet produces enough plants to feed a family indefinitely. Cuttings propagate from the first harvest. No annual seed purchases necessary. For families adopting plant-based nutrition, purslane eliminates the need for algal omega-3 supplements. For omnivorous families, it reduces fish consumption, lowering mercury exposure and supporting ocean ecosystems. Cassava feeds 600 million people globally. It's the third most important food crop worldwide, behind rice and wheat. In America, cassava is nearly invisible. 1 pound of cassava root produces approximately 400 calories. The starch is easily digestible. The nutrition is reliable. And cassava grows in conditions where wheat, corn, and rice fail catastrophically. But cassava represents something far more threatening than missing calories. It represents food sovereignty. And food sovereignty is a threat to agricultural consolidation. Nutritional profile. Cassava root is 35% carbohydrate, 1% protein, and nearly fat-free. It's not nutritionally complete on its own. But combined with legumes, beans, lentils, peas, it creates complete amino acid profiles. Additionally, cassava leaves are nutritionally dense. 1 cup contains 3 grams of protein, 27% of daily vitamin A, 21% of daily vitamin C, and substantial minerals. The leaves are more nutritious than the root, yet they're almost universally discarded in Western cultivation. Why it's suppressed? Cassava isn't banned. It's ignored by American agricultural policy and research institutions. The reason is structural. Cassava doesn't fit the industrial monoculture model. It's not a commodity crop traded globally on futures markets. It's not mechanically harvestable on industrial scales. Most importantly, cassava cultivation requires minimal external input. Farmers in subsistence economies grow cassava precisely because it doesn't depend on commercial fertilizer, pesticide, or proprietary seed. It perpetuates itself. It generates independence. That independence is incompatible with agricultural consolidation, which depends on making farmers dependent on purchased inputs. Cassava threatens that model. Growth and cultivation. Cassava grows in USDA zones 9 through 11. In colder climates, it's cultivated as an annual, harvested before frost. In warm zones, it becomes a permanent perennial. Propagate from stem cuttings, not seeds. Each 6 to 8 inch cutting produces a plant. Plant in spring. By fall, roots are harvestable. Full maturity occurs at 18 to 24 months, when roots reach maximum starch content. Cassava tolerates poor soil. It tolerates drought. It tolerates shade better than most food crops. It requires minimal fertilizer, minimal water, minimal pest pressure. Harvest is simple. Dig around the base and pull. Secondary roots develop continuously, so you can harvest selectively without killing the plant. Food independence application. Cassava serves a specific role in family food security, the caloric bedrock. 100 square feet of cassava produces approximately 100 pounds of roots annually. Over 2 years, accumulation reaches 200 pounds, sufficient to provide 80,000 calories, or approximately 110 days of complete caloric security for a family of 4. Additionally, cassava stores exceptionally well. Fresh roots keep 2 to 3 weeks refrigerated. Dried cassava keeps indefinitely. Processed into cassava flour, it remains stable for years. For families building resilience, cassava is foundational. It's the crop that prevents starvation. Everything else, morina, buckwheat, purslane, optimizes nutrition. Cassava ensures survival. Pigeon pea is a legume that produces dense, protein-rich seeds. 1 cup of cooked pigeon peas contains 15 grams of protein. That's equivalent to 2 ounces of ground beef. Additionally, pigeon peas contain folate, iron, phosphorus, and thiamine. They're nutritionally complete on their own. But pigeon peas' greatest value isn't culinary. It's agricultural. Pigeon peas fix nitrogen in soil. They partner with rhizobium bacteria to convert atmospheric nitrogen into biologically available form. When you grow pigeon peas in a garden bed, you're simultaneously producing food and enriching soil for future crops. This makes pigeon peas the foundation of regenerative agriculture. Why it's suppressed? Pigeon peas aren't suppressed by law. They're suppressed by market structure. Nitrogen is supplied industrially through synthetic fertilizer. The Haber-Bosch process, developed in the early 20th century, converts natural gas into synthetic nitrogen at scale. This process generates massive profits for petrochemical companies. Nitrogen-fixing legumes like pigeon pea make synthetic fertilizer unnecessary. That's an existential threat to the fertilizer industry. Additionally, pigeon peas don't fit the American commodity system. They're not heavily traded. They're not standardized. They're not mechanically harvestable. That means they don't fit the industrial agriculture model. In countries where agriculture is less consolidated, India, East Africa, the Caribbean, pigeon peas are fundamental crops. They're grown on millions of acres. They're central to food security and soil regeneration. In the United States, they're virtually unknown outside Caribbean immigrant communities. Growth and cultivation. Pigeon peas grow in zones 8 through 11. They tolerate heat, drought, and poor soil. They're undemanding. Plant from seed in spring. They germinate in 10 to 14 days. Within 90 days, you have flowering plants. By day 150, pods are mature and ready to harvest. Pigeon peas grow tall, 6 to 8 feet typically. They require no trellising. They support themselves. Harvest pods when they're fully plump and beginning to dry. Pod production continues for 6 months. A single plant produces 100 to 200 pods. That's 1 to 2 pounds of dried peas per plant. Food independence application. Pigeon peas address protein security and soil regeneration simultaneously. Grow pigeon peas in a dedicated bed. Harvest the peas. Let the root system remain in the soil. When you plant the next season, that nitrogen-fixing root system has enriched the earth, reducing or eliminating the need for external nitrogen inputs. Over 3 years, a pigeon pea bed becomes progressively more productive and fertile. You're not depleting soil. You're building it. Additionally, pigeon peas produce year-round in warm climates. You harvest continuously. You store dried peas indefinitely. Combined with cassava or buckwheat, pigeon peas create complete protein when those grains are consumed together. Bitter leaf, scientifically Vernonia amygdalina, is an African plant that's moving into global recognition. 100 grams of bitter leaf contains vitamins A and C, calcium, iron, and a unique compound called vernoniacides, polyphenolic compounds with documented antimicrobial and antiparasitic properties. In traditional African medicine, bitter leaf is used to treat malaria, parasitic infections, and gastrointestinal disorders. Modern research has validated these uses. Additionally, bitter leaf contains compounds that support liver detoxification. In regions with heavy toxic exposure, industrial areas, agricultural zones with pesticide contamination, bitter leaf provides direct nutritional support for the body's natural detoxification processes. Why it's suppressed? Bitter leaf isn't banned in the United States. It's simply unregulated. The FDA hasn't approved it as a food ingredient. It hasn't appeared in American agricultural extension publications. It hasn't been studied by major American universities. That lack of visibility serves interests. Pharmaceutical companies profit from disease treatment. If bitter leaf prevents parasitic infection and malaria, pharmaceutical sales decline in endemic regions. If bitter leaf supports detoxification, the supplement industry sees reduced demand for liver support products. The suppression is passive, through absence from research, education, and commerce. But it's effective. In West Africa, East Africa, and parts of Asia, bitter leaf is cultivated as a food security crop. It's drought-tolerant. It's nutritious. It's medicinal. It deserves global cultivation. Growth and cultivation. Bitter leaf grows in zones 9 through 11. It tolerates poor soil, drought, and heat. Propagate from seed or cuttings. Seeds germinate in 14 to 21 days. Seedlings develop slowly initially, then accelerate. By month 4, you have harvestable plants. Harvest leaves continuously by pinching the top third. The plant branches and produces more foliage. Production accelerates through the growing season. In warm climates, bitter leaf is effectively perennial. In cooler zones, it's cultivated as an annual. Food independence application. Bitter leaf addresses 2 vulnerabilities: nutritional security in conditions of toxic exposure and disease prevention in low-resource contexts. For families concerned about pesticide exposure from conventional agriculture, bitter leaf provides direct liver and metabolic support. For families with limited access to medical care, bitter leaf offers preventive antimicrobial and antiparasitic benefits. Additionally, bitter leaf dries exceptionally well. Dried leaves retain their active compounds. A small bed of bitter leaf produces enough dried leaf for year-round tea consumption. Tree collards are a variety of collard greens that grows perennially and produces continuously. Unlike annual collards, which must be replanted yearly, tree collards produce for decades from a single establishment. One plant yields 50 to 100 leaves per month during growing season. Nutritionally, tree collards contain 50% of daily calcium per cup, substantial vitamin A, and compounds that support bone health and immune function. The nutritional profile is identical to annual collards. The difference is perpetuity. Why it's suppressed? Tree collards aren't suppressed by law. They're suppressed through ignorance and market preference. Commercial agriculture prefers annual crops because they force annual seed purchases. Farmers become dependent on seed companies. Seed companies generate predictable revenue. Perennial crops undermine this model. Additionally, tree collards are slow to establish commercially. First-year production is modest. By year 3, production is substantial. But commercial agriculture demands immediate returns. That timeline is unacceptable. Growth and cultivation. Tree collards grow in zones 6 through 11. In colder zones, they're grown in containers and overwintered indoors. In warm zones, they're effectively permanent. Propagate from cuttings. Take 6 to 8-inch cuttings from established plants. Root in water or soil. Within weeks, you have rooted plants ready to establish. Establish in spring. By midsummer, you have harvestable leaves. Production increases through year 2 and 3. Harvest by pinching individual leaves from the base of the plant. Never harvest more than 1/3 of the plant simultaneously. The plant regenerates within days and produces more foliage. Tree collards tolerate poor soil. They tolerate partial shade. They require minimal input. Food independence application. Tree collards address continuous leafy green production without annual replanting. A single established tree collard produces enough leaves for a family of 4 to consume multiple servings weekly without depleting the plant. Over 20 years, one plant eliminates the need to purchase collard seeds or seedlings. More broadly, tree collards represent a philosophical shift toward perennial food production. Instead of annual crops requiring constant replanting, you establish perennial plants that produce for decades. That reduces labor. It reduces input dependency. It increases resilience. These 7 plants share characteristics. They grow in marginal conditions. They require minimal external input. They produce continuously or repeatedly without annual replanting. They address nutritional gaps in industrialized diets. And collectively, they're suppressed through regulatory absence, cultural vilification, or market ignorance. That's not coincidental. Food systems based on dependency generate profit. When you rely on industrial agriculture, fertilizer companies, supplement manufacturers, and processed food brands, they benefit. When you generate your own nutrition from perennial plants in your yard, they lose revenue. The suppression isn't a conspiracy in the traditional sense. It's the predictable outcome of economic incentive. Systems that profit from dependency naturally suppress alternatives that create independence. That's why these plants matter. Not because they're miracle cures or revolutionary discoveries. They matter because they represent an alternative. They make self-sufficiency feasible. They make food sovereignty achievable. As global food prices rise, as supply chains become less reliable, as climate volatility increases, rediscovery of these plants becomes inevitable. The only question is whether you'll be ahead of that curve or scrambling to catch up. You now understand what governments and corporations hope you never learn. 7 plants that could feed your family on almost no space. You know their nutritional profiles. You know why they've been suppressed. You know exactly how to grow them. You know how they work together to create food security. Most importantly, you know that independence is achievable. Not through complex preparation. Not through expensive infrastructure. Through knowledge. Through seeds. Through commitment. If you've experienced growing any of these plants, if you have questions about legality or cultivation in your region, comment below. Share your experience. That information matters. If you believe food independence is essential, if you believe people deserve to know about plants that create sovereignty rather than dependency, subscribe to this channel and enable notifications. We're building a community of people who grow their own food, who rely less on systems designed to control them, who choose independence. That's the mission here. Until next time, grow what matters. Question what you're told to ignore. Build resilience. Stay independent.